Time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the three key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
Welcome to Ultimate Arena. Today, we're diving into a scenario that's no longer just theoretical. After President Trump's massive precision strikes on Iran, the ripple effects aren't limited to distant battlefields. Becky, how does such an overseas event immediately alter the American landscape?
Stephen, military action abroad fundamentally shifts the security equation at home. Decisions made in Washington or Tehran can trigger cascading effects, from cybersecurity threats to economic instability. The public often overlooks how quickly these impacts can hit our daily lives.
That's a crucial point. The battlefield isn't just overseas, it's increasingly in our own backyard. As we explore this further, let's focus first on how digital threats move to the forefront in these crises.
In the wake of strikes, the Department of Homeland Security warns that Iranian cyber actors would likely retaliate, initially targeting Israeli assets, but quickly pivoting to U.S. networks. These aren't empty threats, they're calculated moves to exploit our digital dependencies.
Absolutely. When DHS issues such alerts, it signals a credible, imminent risk to critical infrastructure. Could you break down what makes the digital realm so attractive to state-sponsored attackers in these scenarios?
Certainly. Cyber attacks provide plausible deniability and can be scaled rapidly. Unlike conventional warfare, a single hacker can disrupt thousands of systems simultaneously, causing confusion and panic without physical confrontation.
So, as we transition, let's consider what these attacks might look like for the average American. Picture this. You wake up to find your local coffee shop unable to process payments, traffic signals malfunctioning, and hospitals struggling to access patient records. Becky, how realistic is this scenario if Iranian cyber actors strike?
It's disturbingly plausible. The Center for Internet Security has confirmed Iranian hackers have already penetrated U.S. water systems. These aren't Hollywood plotlines. Just last year, a ransomware attack disrupted a major city's emergency dispatch.
What's particularly concerning is the domino effect. If one sector like healthcare or transportation goes down, it can cripple others. Can you give an analogy for how interconnected these systems are?
Think of it as a spider web. Disturbing one strand sends vibrations across the whole network. A cyber attack on power grids, for instance, reverberates through communication, finance, and public safety systems almost instantaneously.
Let's turn to the financial sector. If banks become targets, Americans could face frozen transactions and stock market chaos. How does a cyber attack threaten the very pulse of the economy?
Banks are data-driven institutions. A coordinated cyber strike can halt ATM networks, online banking, and even interbank transfers. According to a 2022 Federal Reserve report, a multi-day outage could erase billions from the market and erode public confidence almost overnight.
That's staggering. Could a run on banks occur, reminiscent of the Great Depression, if people lose trust in digital transactions?
It's possible, especially if panic spreads via social media. Even a temporary service denial can spark widespread withdrawals or sell-offs, deepening economic instability before authorities restore order.
Another critical target is the energy grid. Imagine widespread blackouts during a heat wave or snowstorm. Becky, what vulnerabilities exist in our power infrastructure?
Many grids rely on outdated control systems with limited cybersecurity. In 2015, Ukrainian power plants were hacked, cutting electricity to over 200 people. Similar tactics could leave U.S. cities in the dark, impacting everything from hospitals to food supply chains.
The economic and human toll would be immense. Do you foresee businesses and consumers bearing higher costs as utilities scramble to invest in stronger defenses?
Absolutely. A 2023 report by the Electric Power Research Institute estimates U.S. utilities will need to spend $15 billion over the next decade just to keep pace with emerging threats costs that will trickle down to everyday consumers.
Moving beyond cyberspace, let's talk about Iran's network of proxy groups. American interests in the Middle East, such as military bases, become prime targets. How does this escalation play out on the ground?
History offers stark lessons. After Soleimani's death in 2020, U.S. bases faced missile barrages. Proxy groups like Hezbollah or Shia militias can strike quickly, using asymmetrical tactics to inflict casualties and force political responses.
And every casualty can fuel calls for more military action, creating a feedback loop of escalation. What about American businesses operating abroad? Are they similarly at risk?
Definitely. Oil companies, contractors, and NGOs all become potential targets, facing kidnappings, sabotage, or cyberattacks that disrupt global supply chains and U.S. economic interests.
Let's consider the broader economic picture. How could disruptions to shipping lanes or oil pipelines by Iranian proxies affect global markets and American consumers?
Closing the Strait of Hormuz, even briefly, could spike global oil prices by 30–50%. According to the International Energy Agency, every 10 increase in oil adds roughly 0.2% to global inflation, directly impacting gas prices and household budgets in the U.S.
So, a single attack can send shockwaves through the global economy, not just regional markets. How do supply chain interruptions exacerbate these effects?
Disrupted shipping means delays in everything from electronics to food imports. The 2021 Suez Canal blockage cost $9.6 billion per day. Imagine similar disruptions on multiple fronts due to conflict-driven sabotage.
Turning inward, let's address the risk of homegrown violent extremism. What does intelligence say about Shia-inspired attacks on U.S. soil if conflict with Iran escalates?
The National Counterterrorism Center has warned that U.S. strikes on Iran could catalyze Shia radicalization domestically. Although rare, lone actors or small cells might target public spaces or government sites, inspired by overseas events.
A chilling prospect. How can early engagement with at-risk communities and intelligence sharing mitigate these threats before they materialize?
Proactive outreach, education, and monitoring of online forums are key. Studies show that community partnerships can reduce the likelihood of radicalization by fostering trust and early intervention.
Conflict doesn't just cause physical or economic harm, it invades our collective psyche. How does living under constant alert affect American society's mental and social health?
Chronic stress from persistent threats leads to anxiety, depression, and polarization. After 9/11, rates of PTSD in New York doubled. Heightened suspicion and anti-Iranian sentiment can fracture communities, making resilience and social cohesion more challenging.
Schools and workplaces might tighten security, altering daily routines. What broader economic consequences stem from this fear-driven climate?
Heightened anxiety reduces consumer confidence and spending. According to the University of Michigan's surveys of consumers, fear of instability can slow economic growth and even tip economies into recession during prolonged crises.
In our final segment, let's look ahead. What steps must government and society take to rebuild security and public trust after such a domestic crisis?
Comprehensive cybersecurity upgrades, transparent communication, and bipartisan policy reforms are essential. The 2001 Patriot Act, for example, overhauled intelligence sharing, but also raised civil liberty concerns. Any response must balance security with rights.
And resilience isn't just technical, it's psychological. How can communities foster the adaptability needed to withstand these shocks in the long run?
Investing in civic education, mental health resources, and inclusive dialogue builds collective resilience. Lessons from post-Katrina New Orleans show that community-led recovery accelerates healing and adaptation far beyond what top-down policies can achieve.